Welcome back to my channel. I know it's been quite some time, but the important thing is I am back and I'm here to answer one of the most common questions as of late, which is the cost of living. What is the cost of living here in Saudi? So I'm going to start with the big stuff, you know, the big expenses, which to be honest vary very significantly, and then I'm going to go down to like the smaller weekly, monthly expenses, just to give you a nice range of what really you can expect. And just a bit of a caveat here is, you know, I'm not saying my way is the only way. I do splurge a little bit, so you know, the costs that I give you, you can probably cut some of them out, but I just want to be honest, I want to be realistic around what it is that I share, okay? So first up, we have accommodation. This is one of probably the most popular questions that comes my way. I'm not a real estate agent, so I'm sorry for everyone I can't actually give proper detailed answers for. But one of the things to know is your accommodation allowance is about 25% of your salary. So if you know that, then that will obviously help you determine what you can afford, basically. And so just like with anything, it's kind of like how long is a piece of string? You know, it depends if you're in Riyadh, it depends if you're in Jeddah or some other place, it depends if it's just you and it's a 1 bed or a 2 bed or a 3 bed or this or that. It depends if you want to be in a compound or this. So there are so many variables to this question. So I'm going to give you just a rough steer. And these costs are for Jeddah, okay? Because that's what I know. I'm going to sort of share something just on the screen somewhere here. Basically, as you'll see, Riyadh prices have gone like this, okay? So if you're moving to Riyadh, you're gonna be, hopefully, on a bit of a higher salary to accommodate your accommodation increases. But for Jeddah, I would say a nice 1 bed will probably be between 40 and 70k for the year. Obviously, there's cheaper, and you know, those are more kind of your local apartment blocks and stuff, which are fine. It depends what your standards are, okay? So that is what I'd say for 1 beds. For 2 beds, you're probably looking at anywhere between 70k and 100k. Obviously, this is a range and you can go outside of the range, but I'm just kind of giving you a bit of an average. And as for 3 bed, it'll be like 100k plus. And this is for like nice apartments, it's for nice compounds. You know, you can go sort of local, you can go to these smaller apartments and so on, which will bring the prices down much more, but ultimately it depends what it is you're looking for. So in reality, all of those costs you could half really and still get quite a nice place. Now in terms of travel, another big expense. So in your contract, you should have 10% is the travel allowance for you. So 10% of your total salary. And so to live here, you really need a car. Like, car gives freedom, so much freedom. However, for me, I did taxis for about a year, which, I mean, the prices over that time went up quite significantly to where they are now. But I would say for a trip, you're probably looking anywhere between like 30 and 75 for something that's, you know, 75 Riyals. Something that is, you know, 15, 20 minutes away. Obviously, you can go north of that. There's surcharges and all that side of things. So if we're looking at that and kind of taking an average of 2 trips a day, you're probably looking at, you know, top end 140 Riyals per day, or probably about, you know, 950 Riyals per week. So it gets quite expensive when you're looking at taxis. And sometimes you're back and forth all in one day, shopping, this, that, everything. So again, those prices can ramp up pretty quickly. So then what I did for my next year is I just hired a Toyota Yaris. Okay, I rented a Toyota Yaris. It was good, sturdy, shall we say. And for that was about 2,500 for the month. So when you're relating it to taxis versus freedom and car, you know, you're more than happy to pay that. The rent for a month can go up and up and up and up depending on obviously the car you get. I know people who are spending like 5,000 and they're getting something which is a lot bigger, a lot sturdier, a lot safer, but you know, it's still quite a fair whack. And when you compare that to actually buying a car for yourself, whether it's on a, you know, cash outright or a 2-year lease or a 5-year lease or whatever it is, it becomes much more financially sensible. You're not just feeling like you're throwing money away, and you obviously get that freedom, which for me is a mandatory, has to, I can't go back. And so one of the last things for the big stuff is your medical, right? So your medical insurance, that will come with your contract. Your employer has to provide you with medical. Doesn't mean it's going to be good medical. You've got tiers, right? So you've got like the bronze, the silver, the gold. Bronze, absolutely atrocious. Covers you for nothing, basically. So ask what you're going to be on, and you can always pay the difference to get upper bracket or whatever that might be. So your HR, your employer, should help with that, because ultimately you don't want to be served with something that is pretty much useless and isn't going to actually help you in your time of need, and you're going to have to start paying out for all sorts of things. That happened to me recently when I sort of felt a bit of a lump down there, and had to do ultrasounds, consultations, this, that, everything, and that's, before you know it, it's like 3.5, 4K. So I know money for peace of mind is good. Everything was fine, by the way. But you know, it's important to understand that before you ultimately get to a point where it's like, shit, my medical insurance doesn't cover anything, and now I need it. And now for the day-to-day kind of stuff. So I might even, put a little text here if I'm feeling fancy in editing the video. And again, this is always a fluctuation. It depends on your lifestyle. It depends on what you want, how you live, how many of you are there. So for me, I'm going to generally go through this in terms of a couple, all right? So what a couple would look to spend. So first of all the fun stuff, bills, probably about 400 Riyal a month. You've got your Wi-Fi, which again is probably, a comfortable 400 for a decent, connection and network. You've then got your mobile, which is probably around 100 Riyal a month for the contract or your prepaid or whatever that might be. Now we have gas, which is the most amazing thing here, although recently it's actually, that people say it's expensive, although coming from the UK, it really isn't expensive. So to top up my car, which is a Jeep Compass, it's 100 Riyals, right? And I might do that 3 to 4 times a month, which, turns out at about 400 Riyals on gas for a month, which is probably the equivalent of filling it up once in the UK. We've then got your car wash, which is about 30 Riyals. You might do that twice a month. So let's say 60 Riyals washing your car for the month. Now, one of the bigger expenses is gyms aren't cheap, okay? Gyms are not cheap at all. So for me, my gym, which is just a CrossFit box, essentially, is about 8,000 for the year, okay? So you either pay 8,000 annually, or you can split it into two. So that really works out at about 700-ish a month. Okay, the food shop, all that related stuff. So I train a lot, as does Taya, so we're eating a lot of food. So, yours will probably be a fraction of this. A normal food shop, you'll probably spend about, 500 Riyals for your toiletries, your washing up, this, that, food, everything like that. So say you're doing that twice a month, which is about 1,000 Riyals on food. And then for me, I order my own meat in, because I hate grocery meat. It's just bleh. So I order from a butcher, and that's about 500 again times 2, so about another 1,000 a month on just meat, chicken and beef. Fruit and veg, again, hate getting it at the grocery store. It's just a bit, so there's a separate supplier for that, and you could probably do that, for 200 for good quality fruit and veg, times 2, so again 400, say, for the month. Now your water, you want to get these big water gallons delivered to your home. People like Nestle Purina, I think, do that, and it's pretty cheap, right? It's like 240 Riyals for 6 months of water, rather than lugging your 1 litre bottles or whatever else up to your apartment. So let's say that's about 60 a month. And then for me, supplements, again, I train, so I want all my vitamins, minerals, protein, and that kind of stuff. So let's call that 500 for the month. When it comes to eating out, you've obviously got a vast range of places. You've got your more luxury places, which for a couple could be anywhere from like 750 to 1,500 for a meal, which is quite spenny, especially as there's no alcohol. So let's say you do that, twice a month. So we'll call that 2,000. You've then got your standard restaurants, so the mid-range type, and you could be looking at spending 150 to 300 for a couple again, right? So let's say you do that 4 times a month. So we can say, let's say 1,200 riyals a month on just your bog standard restaurants. And then what is life without takeaways? Those midweek pick-me-ups that we all need. So I'm going to say between 100 and 250 riyals, and let's say you do that 6 times. So we'll give 1,500 for that, okay? And now coffees. You know, there's no bars, there's no clubs, so you go to your cafes and you might be spending 30 riyals a time. Let's say that's 10 times a month, so another 300 just for coffee. And for me, you've got to factor in the haircuts, right? So go into the barber, 150 a time. Again, there is cheaper. So we'll chuck in 300 for the month just for feeling fresh. And then other entertainment. Let's say you go to the cinema twice a month. Okay, so let's call that 600 riyals for a couple going to the cinema twice a month. And of course, there's a lot of other stuff. You know, Taya might do her nails, she might do her hair, she might do her eyelashes. You know, you might be going to, I don't know, a show, something like this, something like that. But everything that I've given you here is kind of like the basic, right? That's what you can factor this in if you kind of want to live a life that you can enjoy, you have fun, you know, there's a bit of a buffer, you're not kind of skimping and feeling like you need to kind of pull back in terms of what you're spending. And as I said, we eat a lot, you know, we like going out a lot. So again, you know, we're living life in that way. So in terms of a total, let's say for a month in terms of expenses, forgetting about travel, forgetting about accommodation, is about 10,500 riyals, and that's really for 2 people, okay? To put it into Great British pounds, right? Pounds sterling, that'll come in sort of, obviously there's a fluctuation between exchange rates and stuff, but that'll be about £2,200 a month just on really living for 2 people. So you might think that that is excessive. It could well be, but I wanted to give you my honest, you know, outlook on what we do, on what is a comfortable life here. Again, you don't need to go eating at the luxury restaurants. You don't need to go out eating takeaways, coffees, all that kind of stuff. You can live, you know, comfortably, pretty chilled. But honestly, because there's not a crazy amount of stuff to do, it's always nice to go out to these occasions, to sort of go out for dinner. Even though you might be spending a lot, you know, it's an experience, it's something to enjoy. At the end of the day, you know, there's no tax, there's no income tax, right, on what you earn. So you've got a little bit more room to play with. I really do hope that that was useful. Hopefully you're not there being like, Pete, what the hell? You're wasting your money. But no, I hope it was useful. I hope it gives you a bit of clarity as to what you need to consider, where stuff largely falls. For me, the cost of living, you know, versus being in London, for example, isn't really that great. You know, there's things you're going to spend a little bit more for. There's things you're going to spend less for. Gas, ooh, amazing. But if you have any comments, if you have any questions, you can also reach out to me on Instagram, put a comment down here, and like, share, and subscribe, please. Lo samat, as they say here. There you go, Arabic word of the day. Please, lo samat.